Welcome, everyone, to a unique exploration of the life and work of Mr. Oppenheimer. We're stepping back in time to discuss the world through his eyes. I'm your host, Jack Gallo, and joining us today is none other than the brilliant scientist himself, Mr. J. Robert Oppenheimer.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Robert, tell us a little bit about yourself, your childhood, your upbringing.
Sure. I was born on April 22nd in 1904. In 1911, I enrolled in high school in New York City called the Ethical Cultural School, which was basically a Jewish reform school. It basically meant that I was in a community with progressive Jews who had an emphasis on social justice, communal responsibility, and secular humanism. I later went to high school where I graduated as a valedictorian in 1921. It was around this time that I actually caught a near-fatal disease or case of dysentery, which made me have to postpone college and get better health. I left for New Mexico in the summer of 1922, where I could get better care and build up my health for college. After I was healed, I went off to college at Harvard, graduated in 3 years, actually. I actually majored in chemistry in university, but I later realized I liked physics way more.
Nice. Can we hear a reflection on how your work is perceived in today's world?
Well, I'd say you can't really see much of it today. I made the atomic bomb, and the only time it's ever been used was during the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You can also see a lot of my research in nuclear energy, which is not super prevalent today. I'd say the biggest area where you see my work is about atomic principles involving protons, neutrons, and electrons, and how they all work together to create how they can work together to create large concentrations of energy.
That's amazing. Next, can you tell us about your view on the relationship between science and religion?
Well, I grew up in a community centered around American Jewish reform, so I never really had strong ties to my religion. I didn't incorporate it into my work, and I didn't let it interfere with anything in my life. Most people don't ask me this because they assume that since I don't talk about it or that I'm not religious, I believe that science and religion can coexist. Science gives us insight into the natural world, while religion can teach us about morality and the spiritual world.
Very interesting. Next, can you tell us about one of your most important scientific findings?
Well, I consider my research on the atomic bomb to be most important. Around the time of World War II, many physicists and scientists like Albert Einstein were really worried that Nazi Germany would be the first to make an atomic bomb, so the United States gathered a team to try and beat them. The U.S. Army chose me as the head of the project. It was known as the Manhattan Project. It took us nearly 3 years, but eventually we had tested and approved our bomb, and the U.S. dropped 2 atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6th and 9th of 1945.
Interesting. Can you now share a turning point or defining moment in your work as a scientist?
Well, this was more of a curveball than a turning point, but in 1954, I think, my security clearance to military secrets was revoked. At that time in the States, the government was working very hard to suppress and prosecute individuals to spread a fear of communism. The government revoked my clearance because I had held communist sympathies in the past. I had already made enemies because of my arguments against the hydrogen bomb, which was very heated at the time. I was trying to warn them that the creation of the bomb would lead to a weapon that could literally destroy the world. Anyways, they revoked my security, which caused a lot of division where I worked, which was the Advanced Institute of Technology at Princeton.
Can you now provide an analogy to help us better understand your work?
Sure, yeah. I'd say that the best analogy would be like if you had to assemble a team of anyone you wanted in your school to do a problem set in math, but you were racing another person in a different school who could also assemble anyone from their school they wanted. But if they finish first, then they're allowed to blow you up. Oh, and after you win this race, then you get expelled from your school because you disagreed with how the administrators ran it.
Very funny. Lastly, how was your discovery/inventions received by others in the field, and what do you hope for its future?
My atomic research received mixed reactions. As for the future, I hope that more people will lean on nuclear energy. I feel like it's very efficient, but the big drawback is the effects that it has on the environment. It can produce large amounts of energy with little amounts of fuel, emit low greenhouse gases, and nuclear plants can operate continuously, providing a stable and reliable source of energy. On the flip side, nuclear waste disposal is a major problem. Maintenance of power plants is very expensive, and nuclear accidents are a possibility. But like everything else, safety can always be improved. That's why I wish scientists would put more effort and more interest in nuclear energy. It's like we're on the brink of a major breakthrough, but some people just don't want to make a few sacrifices. Imagine if I had stopped while I was making the atomic bomb because I was scared that something would go wrong. I always knew it could or would happen, but I never really gave up just because something could have happened. I think that my research about the atomic bomb and nuclear fission could lead to way more technologies and greater sources that could change our world for the better.
Wow, what an amazing journey that we just took through the life and work of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Thank you once again, Mr. Oppenheimer, for sharing your remarkable insights with us.
This episode has been a production of the Capistrano Valley Christian Schools Podcast Network. Capistrano Valley Christian Schools is a Christian JK-12 school in San Juan Capistrano, California. Be sure to check out, subscribe to, and leave a review of this show and the other shows on our network on your podcast player of choice. Doing so supports the school community in a multitude of ways. For more information about the CVCS Podcast Network or any of our other shows, check out cvcs.org or email podcasts@cvcs.org. On behalf of the whole network, this is Mr. Jasper saying thank you again for listening and stay tuned for more.